You know, it's interesting how lighting can make everything look very different. And even a light right here behind me and a light right here in front of me can kind of change the picture. In fact, most of my lectures have been very flat. It's just been one light on me, a black background, and if my hair is dark or a shirt I've got dark, it blends in. But all of a sudden, you add a little creativity. Hey, it looks different. It catches our attention. And really, that is one of the wonderful things about Citizen Kane. The cinematographer, Greg Tolan, was a master of not just lighting, but being able to capture that image on film. And I think one of the greatest contributions to the collaborative effort of Citizen Kane was Tolan's picture. Now, Orson Welles wanted his movie to look different. He didn't want it to be just a normal, kind of flatly lit movie. He wanted to be able to capture reality. He wanted to be able to capture life. And so they used the latest development in Kodak film that was very fast. So, and what I mean by fast means the emulsion, the actual grain on the film itself, was able to operate in a little bit less light, but where you could have shadows and where you could pick up some of those subtleties. Whereas before, I mean, if you walked on a set in the mid-30s, there were just lights everywhere, just plastering, that's probably a poor way of putting it, but blasting light on everybody because the film ran at a slower speed and it needed more light to be able to pick up the image. So film speed picked up, cameras got smaller, and that's why we're able to get some really cool camera angles, and lenses got better. You're able to have, and this is the big term here I want you to understand, you're able to have depth of field. Now, this is a poor example here because I don't have a light in my background so you can see everything behind me. But to a certain degree, from me to this light, you can see there's a little bit of depth. The idea that depth of field is that from the foreground to the background, you're able to see a lot longer of distance. Now, our eyes automatically have depth of field. No matter where we're at, we can focus on something very close to us or something very far away in a split second. But old camera lenses didn't have that focus ability. It was either focused on something in front of it or something way in the back. And with the development of some lenses and a couple of lens tricks, you were able to have something in the foreground in focus and something in the background in focus, and that's called the depth of field. Or sometimes you'll hear it referred to, goodness, I'm blanking out here. Anyways, I'll come up with that term in a moment here. But the depth of field is very important to remember. Now, if you look back at the scene right at the beginning of Citizen Kane, where Thatcher comes to pick up Wells, or not Wells, but Kane, young Kane, at his parents' house in the snow. There's a scene that starts with the young boy playing in the snow in the sled, and the camera slowly starts to pull back, and then it comes inside through the window, and then it comes where you see the dad talking, and then it pulls out even further, and you see the mom and Thatcher talking. And Mom and Thatcher are in the foreground, and young Kane is way outside in the background, but everybody's in focus. That is an amazing scene. It is something that was very revolutionary for its time. Not only were you able to see all that in its field, its depth of field, but you were also able to hear the differences. And that would be, I think, another one of the huge contributions in this movie, is that the sound design is phenomenal. You're able to hear things in the background, hear things in the foreground. Remember, towards the end of the movie, there's a scene where Wells walks from the... Wells is the actor, but Kane comes walking from the background to the fore... Actually, I'm sorry, it's his friend Jebediah comes from the background to the foreground, and Kane is typing in the foreground. You hear the typing in the foreground, and you hear the footsteps coming up towards you. That's really good stuff. Now, you think, okay, Troy, who cares? That's the way movies are. But remember, what we're doing is we're talking about the development. How did we end up where we're at now? And this is one of those movies that took a big jump. It's not that Wells necessarily conjured up, I want to have this sound, I want to have this lighting, and he created out of nothing. But he's the kind of guy who comes along every so often and has the genius to go, I want to have that kind of sound in my movie. Maybe there was another movie that had the sound but didn't have the picture. I want that kind of lighting in my movie. Maybe he saw Toland's movie, but it didn't have the sound or the acting or the depth to it. I want to have that camera angle in a movie. What kind of camera did you use? And he's able to pull all these new advances that are happening in cinema together and put them into one movie. And really, I would say, probably for the first time, to have that many advances in the way it looks, in the way it sounds, and in the way that it conveys its story. Now think about the structure of the story. It's really not that linear. It's not like we start when he's a young boy and we follow him till he gets very rich and successful and then has his problems and then starts to tail off towards the end. No. We're hearing this movie, or watching this movie from different perspectives, aren't we? We get it from 2 or 3 of his friends, an ex-wife, and it's a newspaper man who's doing all this investigation. And so we learn about who he is from a newsreel, and then we go to an ex-wife, and then we go to a friend, and we're constantly getting different pieces of his story in a very non-linear way. So on many different levels, this movie comes at you very differently. Now think about that. 1941. If we were able to go sit in a movie theater and watch this for the first time, we would be pretty amazed at what Wells was able to pull together. I kind of like to compare it in a certain way, and I'm double checking to make sure I'm not going my time. No, I'm not. I kind of compare it to guys like Bill Gates. It's not that Gates was the most amazing programmer out there. I mean, I'm sure he was a good programmer. But what he had was the ability to pull together key components of the team to launch something big. The same is, for some of the better presidents of America. It's not that they're the smartest people in the world. It's that they're able to pull together great team members to make it happen for them. Walt Disney is another great example of that. He was a so-so cartoonist, but he had a vision and an ability to pull together those key components to make something very successful. And that's really, I think, why Orson Welles and Citizen Kane stand out at this moment in filmmaking. Now, controversial? Yes. This movie mirrored the life of one of the most powerful men in America, and it made him mad. He did not want this movie to come out. He even offered to buy off several people in Hollywood so they wouldn't make a stink about it, and buy a copy of the film from RKO and burn it so no one would see it. Now, thankfully, that didn't happen. But what he did do is tell all of his newspapers, don't run any information about this movie, and if you do, it better be a stinking review that will thrash this movie. And you know what? For a while, he succeeded. The movie didn't do well in the box office. And it really didn't catch on until later, a decade or two later. Can you believe that? When people in a couple weeks will be looking at the French New Wave, some of them were able to look back and go, wow, look at the power that this director had. Look at the vision that he had. This is the kind of auteur I want to be as a filmmaker. So in the late 50s and on into the 60s, people started looking back and realized what a phenomenal movie it was. So that's a unique thing about Citizen Kane there. We'll come back in a few minutes and kind of wrap up this idea. Thank you.